And okay, this should be going. Okay, take it away.
So, hi everyone, welcome to my session here. It's about deploying a SQL Server virtual machine on Azure with PowerShell. This time it's a bit more automated than last time. Just a forward to Microsoft Teams as I'm dev myself. If you want to use some accessibility um, stuff, then you can use basically for zooming in using the control mouse wheel and move around with your mouse tracking, so you maybe see a bit more about it. If you want to have closed captioning, which I'm using right now, you probably don't see it. That's because you can just set it up for yourself and yourself only. You have to go to the dots and here the CCs, then you get the closed captionings. So if you put it on, nobody else will see it, just you and yourself. So about me, my name is Kai Sauter. K Sauter is fine too. I'm very used to my English name K. That's fine. I'm a senior BI developer at Levit AG, which is a real estate management company here in Switzerland, in Zurich. I blog on k-data.com. My code I'm showing later on is going to be on the blog soon in the next days, maybe a few weeks. I'm not sure when exactly. So I will put it there so you have the complete code as well there. I'm a Data DGF founder and leader. Data DGF is an online-only user group here in Switzerland for Azure data user. Uh, so data for anything is on Azure. So also for Power BI, actually, I also have people that shows Power BI here. We also Fabric, of course. Basically, the whole stack of Microsoft here. I'm a founder and co-organizer of database.live, which is an online-only conference that is basically a bit focusing of Europe, German Europe. DACH means basically German Europe is Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. This year we are having it in September 27. And I'm also co-organizer of the Data Platform Conference in Switzerland, here in Zurich, which is in person. It's not out yet, the date. We have a date pretty much set, but some signatures are not set yet for the rooms and stuff, so we can't communicate it just yet. I'm also part of the data platform DEI virtual group. DEI for us in diversity, equity, and integration. Also because I'm deaf myself, it's something that is important to me. I am now since almost about 2.5 years now. I'm a Microsoft MVP as well. So if you have a question on this, you're free to contact me either via Blue Sky or Twitter, email, LinkedIn. I mostly prefer LinkedIn, so I'm sure who you are. Basically, just send me a private message. DataGF is found to be on meetup.com, DataGF. I have also GitHub. The code is going to be in the blog soon, as like I said before. So what are we going to learn today? Create a VM on Azure with PowerShell. So it's not strictly only PowerShells. There are some few manual stuff you have to do, but 90% of the things you can do is going to be done with PowerShell. You will have a secure connection to the VM via TSL SSL. And I will also explain why you should take care of it. You can also install software on the VM via PowerShell. You can. I will also have some quick words, not too much words on pricing, because today I'm going more towards the code and give you pretty much a demo of everything, how it's done. I did do some shortcuts because the whole thing, the whole setup would take about 1 hour. So I already deployed some stuff, but I will show you how to log in and how to do stuff actually, how you can do everything yourself basically. So the agenda is first I want to talk about why would you do it that way. It sounds a bit complicated, a bit convoluted. The architecture, why the architecture should be done this way. Of course, also security. I said is something important. The code and tools basically, and the demo. So why would we want to automate VM deployments? Well, first off, we want to have infrastructure as code. That means we have reusability. We can use the code again and again. We can delete the development environment when we want to, because we think we don't need it right now. We also can tell the story of how actually it was born. I was back then, it was shortly before the pandemic. I joined the company as a small consulting company of about 10 people. And like 3 months later, the pandemic kicked in. So we had the problem that we were not able to really have a server locally anymore, or something we have to build up as well in Azure. We wanted to have a dev environment, and I was kind of basically thrown into the world of how to do this with infrastructure of code. So we didn't have the money to have it running just 24/7 basically, so we just deleted it and redeployed again. So this actually was one of the things why we did it. Also, testing was very good. Also, showcasing with any other local instance. So we had basically some a data warehouse that we could deploy to other systems, showcase to the customer to show how it works, and have a clean delete of it, a clean start for the next customer as well. Again, it was also a way to save cost, and also to comply with install restrictions. We were meeting in other spaces with the customers, so we just had something that we could use that way again. So maybe also why PowerShell and not something else? Well, PowerShell is a native tool provided by Microsoft. It has in itself already quite some advantages because, of course, Microsoft prefers its own tools those are coming first. That also makes sense. PowerShell also a lot of DBAs. If you are not aware of it, a lot of DBAs are using PowerShell. I come to that again later, why this is the case. But with PowerShell, you can do a lot of automation for SQL Server. There are a couple of alternatives. I'm not promoting PowerShell to be the tool for everything, the magic bullet for this, but just to have something that you might want to use if you are in a similar situation like I was. I was basically the single developer for this. I did everything for like stuff like this because I was basically the only person who could do this. I did not have an infrastructure team for that. Bicep was back then still in alpha or beta phase, basically was not really existing yet. Terraform was already existing, and Ansible and a lot of others too, but those are completely different languages. And if you are a consultant or a single developer, so it's usually more like a DBA or a data engineer, then you might not have the time to learn other languages or other platform that has quite some steep learning curve like Terraform. And Terraform is perfect. And Terraform, I would use Terraform if you have something that you really want to use frequently, if you have preferably a team for it that can do this for you. Of course, also if you have a lot of more objects to deploy in Azure. So Terraform is actually a bit better for that. Also Bicep, by the way, doesn't really matter what you pick. Both have their advantages and disadvantages. But Bicep is just by Microsoft and is a bit closer to the system. Another possibility would have been Azure Resource Manager. Azure Resource Manager is basically the JSON code that you can use for deployments as well. You could also have don't access, but this is very hard to read and to adapt. So what you see here is just for declaration of variables, you have to do this like this. There are a lot of similar kind of examples in documentation for ARM, that looks like this. And we'll see that the code for this gets extremely quickly convoluted and very hard to read. And this is what I'm showing you here on this JSON here is basically just a very small example of it. If you want to have a complete example, then you will see pages and pages you might use to deploy it. So Agile-wise, what is the Azure platform? Actually, what we are going to talk today is actually infrastructure as code. Infrastructure as a service, sorry. AES is what we are going to discuss. So not SSAS and also not platform SSS. So on premises, you will do basically everything. You have the responsibility for everything. You have physical host, you have the network, but if you infrastructure as a service on Azure, you only have those responsibilities. So you have to configure the network, but it's not the infrastructure itself. You have to build up. You just have to configure them basically. So the hardware stuff is not something you have to do anymore. In contrast to that, for platform as a service, can be a bit confusing because there are some overlaps. The applications, also networks controls and the identity directory infrastructure and so on is done by PaaS. And if you have something like Fabric, Microsoft Fabric, then you have a software service that basically is configured everything for you. So just to give you a map on what we are talking about here. So what is the base architecture for a virtual machine? If you deploy a virtual machine on Azure, what happens at first is basically you have something that is called a resource group, which is basically just a grouping mechanism for you. So if you have any objects that you deploy into, you can move, or you can also have just group-wise something. So just imagine if you want to move your resource group, your objects, all your objects to another location, let's say from US East to US West, then you might have to move each and every object manually to do this. In order to not have to do this, you have just this resource group, so it's a grouping mechanism basically, that you just put it in, and so if you want to move it, just move the resource group and everything else moves along with it. That's the idea of it. Then you have the virtual network, which you can configure to make sure that the objects can talk with each other. You have basically also network security group, which is well, it's not displayed here. but you also have it's basically here. I think that's a network security group. Here it is. This is always on it. So then you have the disk for each virtual machine. So those are separate objects you can have, and also you can have a log storage account and also diagnostic logs. And then you can also get via public IP address out. That's the basic objective for a VM. We also see this a bit later when we deploy it with PowerShell, that we have to take care of those stuff. So the next question is, if you want to have a SQL Server VM, of course, we want to also have a database there. Is and how is the question, how do you upload it? And in this demo, I'm going to show you that we basically can use this with the Storage Explorer. It's basically just a piece of software that Microsoft provides for free. And it kind of looks like the file explorer that we know on Microsoft Windows. That's also, but just a bit more stuff, a bit like SFTP stuff that's inside, and you can upload files just via drag and drop. This is how it looks like. We can AdventureWorks back and take it into a folder and drag and drop. That's it. Was there a question or no? Okay, I just thought someone was texting something. So what we also can do is, that we also will do in this demo, is an Azure file storage. The idea is if you have more than one virtual machine, or if we just want to have kind of a repository, then we can also store it there. The reason for this is that the Azure file storage is pretty cheap. It's much cheaper, for example, than a VM that actually uses quite some storage. It's kind of, it's say a warm storage, because it might start it again. Then it's so the underlying machine, the CPU, is basically kind of warm to start it again. Whereas for example, if you use a file storage, the CPU what you lose behind it is much lower, so it also costs much less. Yeah, so what I do is basically we have basically the storage with the backups of the database. The storage is way cheaper as that is for multiple VMs. You also can do that, and it's mappable on a VM. So what you can do is if you have a VM on Azure, you can actually map this to your VM. So you have easy access from there as well. So security-wise, if you deploy a VM, please make sure that you secure the part to the connection from the outside world into the VM. So this can be done in a few ways. If you decide to have a VPN, for example, then you are secure again. So it's basically the RTP is basically protected via tunnel. With the VPN, this can be done. You can also do it with a private endpoint, for example. Back then, when I developed this, basically, like I said, I was not an infrastructure engineer, I was not an Azure engineer. So for me, that was a bit way too much. So what I chose back then, basically, is Azure Bastion. Azure Bastion is something that is kind of a service that is pretty easy to set up. I will show you this later. This is basically kind of a security as a service by Microsoft. What it does is basically it puts a TSL SSL, like I said, mentioned before, basically over the RDP connection. So this is basically protected by TSL SSL, and you access the VM than via browser. So you are basically using the browser as a mechanism to use TSL SSL. And the other P gets tunneled with this, so it's verified and protected as well as again. So you can also access it from outside, but the public IP address is not exposed. The reason why I'm saying this is, if you think about it, if a non-protected version of this, and this is basically what this paper is, the white paper is talking about, then what can happen is that you can be a victim of DDoS attack. So the denial distributed attack, basically, that basically a hacker would just use the port with a port scanner and attack your VM in this way, so you are not able to access it anymore. So that is actually why the public address should not be exposed if you are something using that is productive. So if you test to do just tests for it, then it could be fine. But usually you should not do this. The alternative, like I said, is also VPN. Also possibility you can do is a private endpoint. But this can be complicated if you are not specializing in this. If you are just a DBA that does do everything, then this is a bit convoluted as well. So the architecture of Azure Bastion looks a bit like this. We have basically the Azure portal. We go to the portal. Then we have the internet from there within the network security group. We basically get a link within from Azure. From there, we can actually access the VM and work on the VMs like we are used to via RDP. So this is how it works. There are now relatively newly the different kind of tiers for the Azure Bastion. There is also a developer SQ which has less options. Is I think for free. So, but it just has less options. This is actually thought to be used for dev and test purposes. And then there is also private only. So if you want to use only a private IP address, you also can do this this way. Do you have any questions so far? So it's next I'm going to the code demo a bit, but if something is not clear yet, so then maybe we can talk a bit quickly about it first.
Where do you develop and test your code? Do you have like a virtual machine in Azure that you use, or someplace else local?
Yes, I have I used to have back then a test, but back then we didn't have. I'm not sure if I got you about. Are you talking about Azure Bastion or the VM itself?
I mean, if you're deploying VMs with PowerShell, do you like RDP through Bastion and have like another VM?
Yes, everything with PowerShell.
Code with.
Yes.
Okay, so then you connect to this and you write all your PowerShell in a VM in Azure somewhere, or do you?
Yes, I'm going to show this. That's actually a good question. I will show this how you do this. I will use the PowerShell shell on Azure. So it's the Azure shell basically. The reason for this, why I recommend this, is it's easier. I'm going to show you a relatively easy solution for someone who is not basically someone who really can do Terraform and stuff like this. So it's something that has a easier access to it. So it's the barrier, the hurdles should be lower a bit. So that's actually what I was hit back then when I did. That's actually so how to do it. In the beginning, actually, back then I used Visual Studio Code. I actually could do this. But last year I realized actually if you use the shell in Azure, then it can be a bit easier because you don't have to take care of some stuff anymore.
Okay. And you mentioned infrastructure as code. So do you use GitHub a lot? And
That's a good question. I've never used this, but I just used this to like I said, I just had basically the code in beginning locally, but you also can have it basically local on Azure. There is a cloud storage, if you will, with folders within the shell, so you also can share it with the team, which is also can be a bit easier. I've never done this with Git, and also with Azure DevOps. It could also be done with, of course, with Git. That actually would be, of course, the best case if you do this. If I would do this nowadays professionally again today, then I would do that probably with Azure DevOps. So, but back then was a kind of the early days still for this kind of stuff. I mean, it was 2019 when I started with this.
Mhm.
So the actual code, do you have more questions maybe? Okay.
No.
It's about 150 lines long, so it's pretty long. So I'm not going to go everything by step. That will be too much. But just the most important steps, and we'll go over the things quickly. At first, if you do go from the local remote from Visual Studio Code, don't forget to use Connect Azure account. I'm telling you this because I also got this myself, so it's something. I will demo the main points, the browsing, some objects, not too much. We won't have the time for this today. Firstly, make sure that you connected. I already said this. So parameters. What we do is basically we have to set some parameters. We had before. We have a resource group. We have the location here. We have the resource group parameters. Like we can also say tags, for example, within PowerShell. We can also give a subnet name and stuff like this. It's those kind of technical names I tend to do just quite easy technical names because it doesn't really matter as a one personal developer basically to have very stringent names. But Microsoft nowadays also has quite some clear ideas how you should name things. So there are actually some naming conventions today. So what we see here are data centers. If you go back here, we could see we can also deploy the locations to East US. What we can see is here is for the sources data centers Microsoft Globe Explorer. There you basically can see a map where you can deploy your VMs worldwide. You can pick any place you want. You could go to Central US, East US. We have Northeast US and some more. So you can actually also check here if you want what kind of place you want to get. But you also can go actually browse it a bit. I will show you very quickly how you to do this, so you get the correct name for East US. So that's something you have to keep in mind as well. The credential object, you can do this like this. Today I just was lazy basically and put in basically as a plain text in it, but you actually could be doing this with a key vault. So that's the preferred way. If you use the system in a productive way, then please use the key vault. That's always the best thing. Don't use a clear text password in your code. But for the demo here, I just did this like this. I removed the password so you don't see it, but for the deployment today, I just have done this way. If you want to pick the virtual machine, you can actually also go to azure-microsoft.com, pricing VM selector here to find the kind of workload type you can get. You will also have to find out which words you have to get basically. So what I'm doing here is at first is to get a location. We browse the location here. Here I have, for example, UK South. So you can actually get a location where object and browse it kind of that way and see all objects that are available here. So you can also do investigations if, for example, a specific object, so service that Microsoft provides is having in your location. You can also count a bit like this. This is basically already browsing pretty deeply. I'm not going to do deeper in this. I'm just saying that this is all possible. So what you also can do is get the VM size like this. Then you get basically the names you want to use. You can also basically select the cores between greater or created equal 16 and lower equal 32. Memory, we have at least 64 gigabyte and memory, and so we get those. I'll get back later what those letters do mean, what they represent. It's actually not so easy to understand, I have to admit this, because Microsoft has a very vast range of sizes of the VM. So what you can do is also pick your VM according to your wishes. Just be careful what to pick, because some can be very expensive. I just checked today. I think the most expensive one is like $32,000 per month. So if you pick the wrong one, it can be a bigger bill than for others, or just around, I think, a couple of dollars per month, if you pick a very cheap one.
Do you know
Microsoft.
Do you know what the most cores you can pick is for a SQL Server?
I don't know this by heart, but I will get to this in the next screen a bit. So you have a see, we will see in the next slide a short overview what you can get. Okay, but what you also can do always, what I can recommend nowadays, this didn't exist 5 years ago yet, is Copilot. Copilot can also be helpful within Azure. You have nowadays also Copilot, and ask questions like this that they actually can give you some recommendations. There was a blog about it, tech community, Microsoft.com. Azure Compute using Microsoft Copilot in Azure to find the best VM size for you. Okay. This is now what we meant, right? So it's a bit just on a high level for this. On a high level, what we see basically, as a summarize, it's not a complete. There are many more options basically, but I wanted to just give you an overview of how the series are named. So we have an entry level, we have a general purpose. That's actually, for a lot of cases, is probably enough. We have also for data warehouse solutions, bigger ones. We have for even very huge data warehouse solutions, also for big data solutions. We have LS. We have also I think high performance computing is the most expensive one. And this was basically for I think was HX was $32,000 dollars per month. And whereas I think A or B is basically just like a couple of dollars per month in total. But then again, they are more like for test and dev stuff, for microservices, proof of concepts, maybe very small DBs and stuff like this. So the range you can get here is very large. But like I said, you can check here actually in those links. You can get all the machines and all the cores you really want. You also can get browse it these ways. You can also say where object, and for example, you could say, for example, give me the max. PowerShell also has a max option, so you can also get the largest number of cores, for example. That's also possible. You of course could look for it, but I don't know this by heart. What you also have to take care of is get Azure VM image offer, location south, publisher name is Microsoft, select offer, publisher name. So what you do basically is what kind of SQL server, what kind of server you want. So for example, you could pick SQL Server 2022 with SQL Server 2022 and Windows Server 2022. So you can have this, or you can have SQL Server 2022 on Ubuntu, for example. You also could have, I think this is also Linux. This is Red Hat. This is Red Hat. SUSE was it exactly? Bring your own license. I think Microsoft just retired this a couple of months ago. This was basically a machine you had to pick when you wanted to have the hybrid version of it. The hybrid means basically you have already bought a license that you want to reuse for your VM. So actually the VM usage, respectively the license on your SQL Server SQL gets cheaper. I think it's like around 30% cheaper you can get. Then you also can pick the SKU, for example. You can also pick then enterprise. What you see here is also again the PowerShell location. You get offer. You can get select SKUs and also see offers again. You can get SQL Dev, for example. SQL Dev Gen 2, basically just the new one. Standard, enterprise, of course, web edition, and so on. At this point, any questions? Is anything unclear? Did I speak too fast or something? I'm a fast speaker, I notice. Maybe it's just a question.
What's your experience like moving on-premise SQL servers to Azure? Like, is disk performance good? Do the CPUs operate as well as you've had experience with, or
So okay,
is it a little bit slower?
That's okay. I would like this answer basically in two answers. So first off course, if you have basically larger machines, you have you can actually also define, for example, disks. You can define you want to have SSD disks, for example. You also could have the standard disk LRS disks, are they called? Then you have a throughput that is slower. So what you can do is basically pick anything you want what Microsoft offers. And here I get to the second answer. Basically, I mean, if you have own server farm, for example, if you have basically something different, then you theoretically always could outcompete the offerings, basically. So this is not something I could give you a definitive answer for, basically. So if you do move to the cloud, you always should also check the performance and test it. Of course, Microsoft, I think, also has now recently now new developer editions is VMs, so you have basically lower costs to test them. You have the possibility to use SQL Server developer editions, so the cost-wise to test this should be pretty low nowadays. There's one caveat, though. I haven't worked really on Azure VMs for a long time anymore, because now I'm actually not so much on the infrastructure as a service anymore. So I don't know what the state is really now today. I only can tell you what I experienced a couple of years ago. Okay, Mike, it's okay. See you later, Mike. Does this answer your question? Good. So I said before, a lot of people are using, a lot of DBAs are using the PowerShell, and this is basically the reason for it. dbatools. Basically, PowerShell can be kind of like SQL Server mentioned Studio with dbatools. It's open source, free code is on GitHub. It was created by double MVP Chrissy Lemaire and is maintained by Jess Pomfret, another MVP, and Joe Menton. So it's very powerful and easy to use. I'll come back to this. I'll show you this later. It has a website, dbatools. It has about now I think 700 commands you can use. So almost everything that SQL Server Management Studio can do, PowerShell can do too with dbatools. Just to give you a quick example, you see this again later. Backup DBS, DBS would just do basically backup across the whole instance for each database. On this instance, yes, in this case, basically, what we do is the instance, yeah, everything, all databases, and we give an Azure-based URL where we want to have the backups. We also can define the tab full, so it's a full backup, and all databases are with this one line of code getting backup and saved to this URL. You can also do it locally. You have plenty of other options. This is just a very easy and basic option you can use. It's of course not just for backups. It also could be used for mirroring. It could also be used for high availability solutions. It could be for a lot of other stuff. Another software I personally really like and was very useful back in the day, 5 years ago, was Chocolatey, because back then, for example, at first when the VMs, SQL Server VMs basically came out, at least around 2019, 2020, we had to also install some software. What the Chocolatey can do is for you is basically something kind of a NuGet. A lot of people know NuGet, but this is basically the C# way, I think, or the C way of it. So we have basically very fast possibilities of software you can download, just like install and walk away via just command line, basically. The nice thing is it's for the non-commercial usage is basically for free. So it's what also does is it does checksums. It also does run antivirus scanner or something like this. So it's also a bit more secure than you would just download it yourself, basically, because it really does the checksums automatically for you. You have to install it like this. So you could theoretically you could do it with invoke Azure run command. I'm going to show you this later. But back then I just have done this basically just on the VM and then downloaded the stuff I wanted. For example, what I did here is I would install Microsoft Edge, Tabular Editor, Text Studio, Azure Data Studio, Git, dbatools, VS Code, for example. Just to say basically then in the end dash Y for yes, that you want to have them installed, and you can walk away from your computer and it gets installed for you. So basically, this is the silent install for those kind of stuff. You also can actually install SSRS, also reporting services that way. What you have to do now is you have to just give you some parameters like this. This is also possible. You can give parameters. You also can install Power BI that way. So if you want to use a VM as a development platform, like I did basically 5 years ago, then you can also do it that way. Upgrading is also very easy. You can do Choco outdated. You can check is there a new version out of it, and it tells you basically yes, it is. You can also have just an upgrade all software like this with Choco upgrade all dash yes. It also has a graphic user interface if you really want to do this. I think this is now a bit outdated image though, but it's more or less still looks pretty much the same. This is not that it completely changed. It's just what it shows you the name author's version in German now here, and what it tells me it's outdated. You also can pin a specific version if you want to do this. You also could do see this pinned, for example. This is just a marker that tells you you want to keep this version even if you upgrade it. So if you have something pinned, it won't get upgraded automatically even if you say please upgrade everything. So you can actually also say this version I want to keep. So in for a VM, you also can do automation for on-off. So it's also possible to tell also Azure to the power off a given time. So if you want to have, for example, your VM for a week, just for a week, have it running, but you want to power it down in the evening, so you don't use CPUs and lower the cost that way. You can do this. You can actually also say 7 o'clock in the morning I'm coming, and 5 o'clock in the evening I'm leaving office. So that's basically when it should shut down. So what you also can do, of course, is backup restore. So you also can do that. It's possible. You can do capture the whole VM if you want. You can backup the security data. You also can backup it on the file storage. This is also a possibility. So I see the time is now a bit running out. So I'm going to the demo. It's already planned here, so I'm not skipping any slides. Good. Let me practice a bit. I will just show you my screen. So, no, exactly. Okay, now let's Are you seeing my screen, my browser?
You can see it now.
Good. Okay, what we see now is Azure. You might know this or you might not know this. I'll just show you how it's done. You have Cloud Shell here. If you press on this, what you get is basically this shell here below. And after this, you can actually go on editor here, already here in it. But if you press on editor, you get something like Visual Studio Code within the Cloud Shell. So it starts a bit after a couple of seconds, actually maybe half minutes. Then you will see exactly what I'm seeing now, this kind of thing, and also the shell. So not starting this because it takes time. So again, what we have is the existing code. But as you saw this already before, what I was talking about the subnet configuration and stuff like this. This is not so interesting because this is basically also what Microsoft documents. But what gets more interesting here is basically this, what I said, define the credential object, and the credential what you have here is the username that you are going to use to log in into the VM later as well. So the same with the password here. If you use please use keyword, then you have to store the keyword there and use basically the same password, the username here again. It works as basically more or less the same. So what the create a virtual machine configuration, what we have here now is SQL Server 2020 with the SQL Dev Gen 2 and version latest. I also can define what kind of version I want in the end. And then this is also a bit very technical, which not going to too much into it. But here with Bastion, when I created the Bastion, also as I said before, I can actually give a kind of developer version, which also makes it a bit cheaper. Then you have what I've done here is I am deploying a storage account name for the file store. So what I also want to have is the file storage. So it was deploy here is also the file storage. This is just some checks to make sure we don't overwrite it. Also, we have the storage account name. We have this, and we get the storage account here, and then check if the file share exists, so we can use the file share then later. We have a drive letter we want to put on. I was unfortunately not able to do this directly in here. You'll see what I mean here. That's something that I have done now within the VM. I just did the network storage directly on the VM with the mouse clicks, so we just can add it that way. But theoretically, it could have been done like this. So just showing you quickly, this could probably done like this. What you do here is a script install NuGet and dbatools. First, I have to install the right NuGet, then the dbatools as force, so I won't get prompt by the NuGet if I really want to install this or not. Map the network drive, that should be done like this. Like I said, I did not succeed it for today, but that's about this way it should be done. Then what you do is an invoke Azure VM run command for a resource group name. You defined the VM and the command. Just give a name for it and the script. The script is what we just defined here. This is the whole script. So what this does is after the VM and after the Azure Bastion was deployed, and also after the storage account, the file storage was deployed. What I do here is I tell basically the VM, hey, please install while you are already from outside. So I don't have to do this. So it's also scripted. Please install the dbatools. I also could do Chocolate like this. For today, I have not done this yet, but also could done like this. So you can actually just also install software like this. And this is when where actually this ends. So what I do after this, I'm going to the VM. So just like this, here the VM is we see the VM was deployed in my resource group, SQL VMs 1, SQL VM 1, and go to the VM here. And here I want to connect it to it. Is either I connect via person here, or you select person here and go it that way. Doesn't matter actually. So I'm just getting the password. Do the quick. And then I connect to it. If you do this for the first time, then you will have basically a pop-up here that asks you if you want to have the possibility of copying text that you can get to the VM. So if you want to do this for security reasons, you can also say no. If you want to do this, you can say yes, which I've done before. And here, basically, what we have is other scripts that actually I use to develop this. Just that basically give me basically the what did I do here? So yeah, exactly here. What you have to do after this is the file storage is here. So the file storage we have as I forgot to tell you this before. I also uploaded the backup on the file storage via Azure Data Explorer. So what I can find it here. So I attached, like I said before, I attached the storage here. So this is basically our set. What we made, I just did it basically with a mouse click like this. It's not this here, so like this. The network location, that is the location here. So the mouse click here at the network location. So you can do it normally. You just have to get the key what you have for the storage. You can get it from Azure as well. So you copy it and put it in here. Then you have the Azure DataWorks, Adventure Works. You have the backup here. And then you have to copy it into the backup folder of SQL Server. So basically also to make sure that SQL Server has the user rights to access this file. And after this, we just use dbatools and restore it. That's what I just done before we started here, and here we have it. So the whole setup basically takes roughly, I would say, 45 minutes. So if you are something developing just for a test case, for a proof of concept, for something like this, I think this is quite a nice solution to have to show something that you can do without you really have to do much, and you have the possibility to put it in code and make progress with it. That's it. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
I
we're
hope
able to,
that was interesting.
Yeah. No, it's nice to be able to have the actual demo with it this time, because I know that was tough the previous time, and then it took us 2 more times trying to reschedule this one to get this one here. So appreciate your patience with us on that one.
Yeah, very good. Do you have any questions?
Have you thought about taking this kind of the next step and doing it with a container as opposed to a virtual machine?
Oh, that's a good question. I think nowadays you still have so I see what you getting for, because of course you have pre-configured Docker container for this, and I think Microsoft also has some of it. I am not sure though if there are any Windows VMs, Windows Dockers. I think they're not anymore. There are only Linux ones.
I think you're right. I've only seen Linux, and I wish.
Exactly. And the problem with Linux ones is they do work. Yes, that's not the problem, but it's I've never seen any Linux SQL Server machines in the wild. I've actually set up a Docker myself once, but I've never heard that anyone have ever used this. If you get what I mean.
Yes.
Because it's so rare, and I'm not saying it's not valid. I'm just saying the use case for this, and then the other problem is it's not 100% compatible. I mean, it's one of the advantages of having a VM, Windows VM, is that you don't have to take care of the compatibility if you move. So you can actually have the 100% compatibility from your on-premises into Azure VM. That's actually the big plus of it. And also, I think you have also the possibility of lift and shift with Azure Data Studio, which was just retired, unfortunately. But I think you have the same capability, the features actually in Visual Studio Code nowadays. At least that is what I could read some weeks ago. Like 2 weeks ago, Microsoft announced to withdraw Azure Data Studio. So.
Rick, that's a interesting question. We have a pretty big container deployment, but our persistent storage is over NFS right now. So all the persistent storage that would be dynamically allocated to containers for things like databases would be over NFS. So it's some of the like failover or any kind of blip in the network type stuff disrupts your storage, and NFS doesn't really handle it quite as well as like VM storage. So we're struggling with like coming up with a good container storage and persistent storage plan that can move around nodes and handle like
is it running on Linux or Windows?
Linux.
Linux, yeah, okay, yeah.
So we don't really do any. We might have one. I don't know if Mike, have one maybe that SQL Server or a couple of development type environments that we spin up, but it's not a production thing.
Yeah, I know I've been getting some questions from Brad about trying to do containerized SQL Server, and I'm like, well, for one, or where licensing currently is set up, I don't think that's really an option. And
Yeah, that's
I'm like maybe you need to look at Postgres for if you really want to have like relational database running in a container. Maybe that'll be kind of an easier thing to from that
yeah.
perspective. But yeah, the
Kafka.
NFS is kind of a good point. I think if you had like really tiny sets of data, like for like web apps or something, it might be fine. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, Kafka, we have to do a whole different storage, persistent storage design, and it's through VMware, and that's going away with the container. Like everything's just still shifting. It's been years and
Yep.
years that everybody's like, oh yeah, containers can do storage now. They still don't, I think, do it well and integrate with all the backup applications. And
Have you
yeah,
ever looked at the SQL Server managed instance?
managed instance. Yeah, we haven't got much into cloud stuff, but
Yeah, it's basically a SQL Server that is directly in Azure. So basically, the you have basically SQL Server instance directly there. Basically, you don't have to take care much of it anymore. Because Microsoft is, for example, take care of the updates and everything. So it's basically an evergreen software, if you will, right? So it's because it's Microsoft is managing for you. The other option is Azure SQL, which is the smaller brother of it, which is basically the application kind of database. Can now, in the past, you only could have one database, but now you have as I gather, you can actually have a pool of it, even so. But if you want to have a SQL Server really like you are used to it, then SQL Server Mentions instance might be an option. However, though, it's only about 99% compatible with SQL Server on premises. So they are just from the architecture perspective, you won't have exactly the same compatibility from it, even though they work basically pretty much the same. Okay, so it's just because the architecture is slightly different. You have also slightly different compatibility, if you will. It's called SQL Server MI. Mention instance. You can type in the chat. With this, you also can do lift and shift, basically. There are also Azure Data Studio did offer basically the check of everything. I would expect that the Visual Studio Code can do this too. I'm not 100% sure because I've never tested it myself. So it's when I did it last time, I did it with the Azure Data Studio. So. Any other questions?
Think so. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. So
Mhm.